We're too cheap. Really not. Mark and I were just too cheap. No, like we don't got time today. Our notes are already booked. This is free. No, man, I'm not cheating.
Alright everybody, let's go ahead and get started. Today, as you know, we'll be doing like a practice skill demo. This is going to be sort of experimental, so I want to have enough time for us to sort of go through it and fix any issues that might arise, okay? So before we go ahead and get started with the practice skill demo and then lecture, a few announcements. One is that the project 3 changes requested are due tonight, okay? So please make those changes. And keep in mind, if you don't respond to those changes, then we'll probably give you a lower score according to that rubric. Or maybe like not making the required changes, it'll impact your code quality and maybe your covered requirements. Okay, the next thing is project 4 was due last night. We're not going to be going through the full code review and changes requested process like we did the other 2 projects. We're going to let y'all focus more on the final project. We'll just sort of grade this mostly based on completion. As long as you've got the requirements working, you should be getting like at least a 97, maybe 100, depending on sort of like how your process journal went. And I think most people will be getting 100 as long as you get everything. So just keep that in mind. We're not going to have the full code review process like we have been doing, okay? The next announcement is for the code walkthrough presentations. Remember, these are starting next week. So on Tuesday and Thursday, we're just going to have 6 presentations on each day. We might have to sort of like roll over onto like the beginning of week 10 for 1 or 2 presentations. But remember, have a 12-minute presentation prepared, and then you'll be asked questions for another couple minutes. The way this is sort of going to work is similar to how it would work in industry when you have to give a presentation on like a part of a code base or your sort of like design for part of the code base. You would have to have sort of like a deeper understanding of the actual thing that you've been like researching for the past couple weeks, but you have to give like a high-level understanding and maybe show a couple examples to like your coworkers. But then you should be able to field any questions that your coworkers might have about like, wait, can you clarify like what exactly this object is doing? How do we like initialize it? What are the parameters? Stuff like that. Okay. You don't have to like have it memorized necessarily, but just be comfortable to like show the answer in real time, right? Like, oh, let me just go to the definition of this class. Let's just quickly read the doc string and see what the object or type of this what the type of this object is or something like that. Okay. So what we'll do is sort of pair teams up. Where like if the team that you're paired up with is presenting, your team will just have to come up with 2 to 3 questions to ask at the end of the presentation, okay? Also a way to just sort of like promote engagement to make sure we're sort of following along with what everyone else is doing. But also, I think y'all will be pretty surprised at how similar some of these design patterns are. And especially like last year when we did these, we sort of did the code walkthrough presentations last year starting in week 6. But there was a lot of things that groups saw in the code walkthrough presentations that they then realized would help them on their final project, like figuring out, I don't know, some thing that they could use or some method or some sort of like general design pattern that was useful or a concept that was useful for working on their final project. Okay, so just as a bit of added incentive there to follow along with the code walkthrough presentations and to be sort of thorough when you're presenting it on your because you might be helping out someone else's project. Are there any questions about this, either of the projects, the final project, or the code walkthrough presentation? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna go into this practice skill demo. Before we do, I just want to preface it with a couple of things here. So one, UCSD is sort of trial running Prairie Learn this year, and there's sort of this big movement from a lot of the CS professors to try out this form of assessment where we give you like a virtual machine basically, and we can sort of like set the parameters for what is exactly going to be installed on this remote desktop, what dependencies will students have, not have. You can turn Copilot off and stuff like that. So there's like a lot of like reasons we're sort of trying this out. It's taken sort of a decent amount of setup for this, But the main thing here is so just keep in mind that this is experimental from our side as well, like the course staff. So there might be some technical issues that come up. Just like raise your hand if there is a technical issue. So we have like me, Steven, and Elena, who are sort of the ones that took like more of a lead on developing the skill demo, because Prairie Learn is like really hard to learn basically. And so be patient with us, but let us know if there's like a technical issue, okay? So right now, maybe just y'all can follow along just for this beginning part, because this interface might be new for you. So you can access like the practice scale demo here. This should just be a Google Doc titled Understanding and Modifying the IDLE Debugger, okay? You'll have to join Prairie Learn if you haven't done this before. I think like there was about 40 of y'all that were already joined, but you should be able to click the student join link and you sign in with Google and have your UCSD account, okay? You should use the student join link to do that. And then you'll access the assessments, okay? So people who are already in Prairie Learn, are you able to see this? If you do it, raise your hand if you can. Okay, awesome. So go ahead and click Practice Skill Demonstration, and then you'll want to certify and pledge the above. Also, this is not going to be for a grade. This will be like your attendance for today, basically. Like you'll eventually submit something, and that's how we'll do like lecture attendance for today. But don't feel too much pressure about making sure you complete all of this, okay? We want to just test out if we can assess students' ability to comprehend and modify a large code base, and this is the rough draft, basically. So when you go ahead and press Start Assessment, you'll be taken to question 1, okay? Just click question 1, and then are y'all, can I get a raise of hands? Are people able to make it to this point? Okay, cool. And then let's just do open workspace, okay? This thing takes like 3 minutes, that's why I wanted all of us to just do that at the beginning for now, as I just briefly explain what is going to be happening during the skill demo, okay? So just to follow, you should click open workspace here, and it'll open another tab, and then don't delete this first tab, okay? Don't delete this first tab. You should always have these 2 tabs open. There's 2 Prairie Learn tabs. One of them will be trying to start a workspace. The other will just be this thing that says question 1, okay? So what you're going to be doing, you'll want to, overall, you're going to be answering some code comprehension questions, okay? And you're going to be doing a couple of code modification tasks, okay? We've sort of given the directions here. I'm not going to go over that right now. But we have written up sort of documentation for y'all on how to use Prairie Learn and how to actually just start the assessment, okay? So you'll actually want to open this student guide. It's going to be like your best friend during this activity, okay? Consider this like, one of the skills of working with large code bases is reading documentation and being able to sort of follow along with certain, like command line instructions like this. So you'll want to do these first 4 things to start the skill demo. Read this closely, and once you get these first 4 things set up, or even like first 5 things, it's just telling you how to run idle, then go ahead and start working on the VS Code in Prairie Learn to answer these different questions, okay? And there's instructions in the student guide on like how to write your answers. You'll want to basically read this whole thing. You'll have a file called tempanswers.txt in your idle-lib directory, and you'll just type out your answers there, and we're going to auto-grade it, okay? The answers are going to be auto-graded. You'll find out, as you leave, basically, or before you leave, what grade you got, basically. Okay, so this hopefully is booted up, or might take a little bit of time to. If it's still booting up, that's fine. But at this point, remember, just keep these 2 tabs open. And now, sort of, go ahead and get started. We'll give you all about 35, 40 minutes to work on this, but we'll see if we need to adjust that based on how it's going, okay? But read the student guide, because I think that's going to help you get started with this. And then you can go ahead and read the code comprehension questions and tasks, all right? Let us know if y'all have technical issues, if it's a question about like something, a clarifying question, that's also fine too. But try to limit the questions to those sort of like technicalities.
There's no copy-paste feature?
Yeah, so, okay, I can maybe show that, but there's also a sort of thing here. There is a copy-paste copy paste feature, but it's slightly roundabout way. You have to copy paste into some clipboard, and then you use the sort of Windows thing, which is Control Shift V. Okay, Control Shift V. But just read the documentation here. It is annoying, I know. It definitely is, but we're trying to see if what we've written up is also helpful enough for y'all to get started on. It's a little bit of a setup time, but then I think you start to get used to it. Just to clarify what I mean by that clipboard thing is here. There's a little clipboard. You can click on this, and then you can copy paste something in, and then whatever is in here, that's what you can eventually like copy paste into the terminal. So if I copy paste this link here, then I can do like Control Shift V, and then it'll do it here. Okay. And then actually I realized I need to show y'all the debugger feature real quick, because some of y'all probably haven't seen it, and so let me do that real quick. Okay, the way you run the debugger feature is when you have like the PyShell open, you can click debugger or debug, and then just click debugger, and then this thing will open up. Okay. You really don't need to know much more than that to do this skill demo, just that that's how you set up the debugger. But if you wanted to actually try doing the debugger, you'd have to like open a file and like write some code, x equals 4, y equals 7, and then like you'll have to run it. So let's just do like test.py. You'll just have to run it, and then it actually lets you start stepping on. Okay, but you don't even have to get to this point, I think. Yeah. I think it will take 60, but it's going to be a different task. It'll be less simpler. We'll see how this goes.
This is your first time. Two other classes for me. No, I think so.
You are so fast. It's so slow.
Most of it's slow.
I have to do one thing per minute.
What are you doing? Oh yeah, we got it. Oh, we can upgrade this one. Alright, who's calling that?
Okay, this one. Okay, that scared me a little bit.
This would be our
Oh, yeah.
course.
You can also copy this.
Oh, okay, something.
Yeah.
I ain't done that.
Yeah, so either live is within
Wait, I don't know. Hold on. Good question. And then follow this. About that. Sir, I have a having the fact that
Oh, I guess it is.
I think it's the head of it. It's a rubber.
What is the blue icon?
Wait, I don't know. I'll go back to see if we have. Oh, yeah, it takes forever. It's like the. You scroll down.
Okay, it's the one with the icon. Which size is it? Oh, it is. Maybe you can be small.
Small.
Yeah. Yeah. And then.
I don't know. You see my money. Dude, I Wait.
There's nothing here.
Yeah, I'm saying it.
Wait, what?
I'm working a little bit.
Oh, I just pulled the fucking.
Mine
That's the reason I tried, so.
Wait, you guys did all these, right? I assume you did all these.
So, just real quick, I'm getting some questions about what is the blue icon for selecting the interpreter. So it'll be in the CPython directory, okay? Once you'll do this through VS Code, right? You'll select interpreter. And it's not that first thing that just popped up that said Bootstrap Python. You'll have to scroll down. And I think sometimes the scroll is a little bit slow, but what you could also do is there is a search. You can search in the top right for just Python. Or you can even click on one of these things and move your cursor down, okay? But it'll be this blue thing that says Python on it, okay? Make sure you select that as your interpreter, otherwise the code navigation features might be a little less.
So let's go. Use 3.1.
just to see.
The entire. The path is /path/to/right.
Yeah. No, it'll be the main yeah.
Just type it in.
But you'll do that at the very end.
Okay.
You'll work into
Wait,
it.
no, you should just see like, well,
Why not use it?
yeah. No, I don't know.
That's one thing we're testing right now.
Is this a stress test?
No, not like that. I wasn't hoping I like planning on.
So. Sure. No. You don't have to use it.
I feel so proud of myself.
Take your time. Well, because you're idle to see my. No, I'm good over it. I don't know. Take 4 hours.
But I want to talk
What are you trying to stop?
What are you?
Yeah, you should just treat it like a.
So I never ran idle.
No, you want to be an idle. It's like the same thing.
So you open folder or yes. You didn't do anything.
I'm gonna open one. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, you didn't see the items.
You're not like that.
Same thing.
Basically, we should have been. Code comprehension question. One code raises stroke below. $46. Now we do this. Yeah,
dude.
no, the other docs. This one.
No, but when you dislocate.
It's because like,
Wait, I think I got it. No, I think it's really just great. Yeah, book to be good. How long you would look at this tree?
Yeah.
You must have. I shall not buy. So I can actually.
Yeah.
Oh, there's two spots, 1A, 1B, 1. Yes, debugger underscore. Oh, oh, wait. Watch me wrong. It's the best part. You can do the same. Which one? 1070. Me, I'm just. I select them. No, not Flash. I've done slower than getting out of this. Yeah.
or how do you open it? Or open some?
How do you trigger?
Oh, yeah, you could.
Magic Age Magic.
Oh, okay. I can't imagine using this forever. Unless they make it faster.
What did you say that back here? Where?
Okay. Yeah, it sucks. I hope they never make it like this. Really?
Oh.
I've just never.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or your phone is like.
Wait, no, 1079.
I think at this point I'm like doing some mine. But even the hotkeys don't work. If you want to copy, you want to just like command E
Or did I?
I think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love the tape.
362 at 10.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Alright, done. I knew I'd be like,
Let me say that the word trash is. All my problems.
you have one. Oh, right.
So a couple things I want to point out. One is that once you're able to open idlib in VS Code, if you go to this temp_answers.txt, this is basically like the template for how you need to format your answers, okay? So you should make sure you do it just like this. You'll type in the file name here, like here.py, and then, some line number, okay? But one known issue that we just couldn't figure out was how to save this, okay? You'll notice if you try to save it, it just says fail to save temp answers, okay? So this really is just like a temporary file, I guess. And so just keep in mind, as long as you don't close it, you should be able to just keep updating it, and then eventually you can copy it over to your eventual submission format, okay, your submission file. Yeah, if it's also like too much of a pain to like be working on this and be worried about closing it, you can just copy paste this and work on it in a document like outside of PeriLearn if you want to. Like you can just open up a Google Doc or something and have it there.
Oh, what the fuck? I can't even right click.
Oh, I just have the permission then.
Mine's dude, everything I click. If I highlight it, it's all about me. Like down, too many.
The first Google Doc that is like that is what's hard. Yeah, so there's says like and then there's a couple of so you use control. So you use whatever macro. But then to do it here, it's control shift. And it's even in the this
Actual cup, but it.
control shift.
Yeah.
You can check the top of that document.
Files line number.
Oh yeah, okay.
Is it me?
Oh, sorry, I think she was. Oh, you didn't see that? It was just, yeah,
Oh, wait. What's the difference?
Okay, that's okay, yeah, that must be good in updates. As long as you're able to get to where you're at.
Yeah, I'm kidding. What?
Rolling is one, so let me just make sure that you're doing the full,
Oh, here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it is.
Ellie can't even go to the file.
One thing that we're doing like.
Sorry.
Sorry. Oh, you mean like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Maybe, wait, this is nothing happened.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we have feedback form at the end of the demonstration.
Don't worry.
Ain't no way to make it. Not yet. Thank you. It's not.
You're used to it.
I know. You want to say 11? I think. Looks.
Okay, this one
This is the guy.
This is the.
and so
That's
you
chief.
can
Yeah, that's CTO. Back to CTO. So if you can play this way, you can play these. I think it's all.
oh yeah, no right.
Alright, let's continue. All things for 2 weeks. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's stacking it to
No, just the rest. Oh, wait.
So just we try to be like super picky about stuff. Just try to see. It was just, but it's too weird. And now it's just that's really so people playing the rest of
I would.
Like she had like. I don't know.
It's the different.
That's okay.
It's just a fine.
Wait.
Yeah, so I just.
I think that this was a little while. Oh, for real? Like I actually not. I'm feeling whatever. So.
I don't know what the fuck that means. Yeah.
Just throw it. Just throw it.
Just specifically one.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. You probably can. Can we just start? You said. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, well, because they're actually
Fail to say sufficient provision.
I tried
Smart. Yeah. How about that? Fucking Below.
Oh, I see.
something
Fucking
weird
Below.
having two
Buggers.
debuggers that are trying I guess they use the same like call. But I know.
Is it just T space?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I was like just thinking like.
I know that's really but we're I'm just happy to test right because the final example is going to be way better.
Oh, right, you just copying over the exact same.
Or the final skill demo, it's not a big thing, it's just like this, but on a different interface, and it's not gonna be like more.
Control.
No, that's fine. I just.
And yeah, I can't
Okay,
say.
okay.
No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to.
What is it?
When you try to initialize a debugger, it starts.
You'll just have to, yeah.
Thank you.
What's this thing?
Post the state of the work.
Bro. But you can say she will. No, not blind burn. Wait. Well, you just highlight it.
Okay, I just want to do a quick check-in on where we're at in the progress on this. So remember, you'll have to answer these code comprehension questions and do these two tasks. And you're going to be submitting your answers to this question and just submitting your debugger.py file. Raise your hand if you actually keep it next to your chest so you don't get over, like, we won't have a raise of hands, people will feel bad if they're a little further behind. Just put like a 5 if you have gotten to this, or like a fist if you haven't gotten to this, okay? If you've gotten to like number 1, just put like the 5 on your chest, okay? Okay, if you've gotten number 2, keep the hand on your chest. If you've gotten to number 3, keep the hand on your chest, or switch it to the fist. Okay, number 4, have y'all gotten to that? Okay, and then number 5, and then how about finish task 1? Okay, finish task 2. Okay. The last 3 I think I nobody had done. Okay, keep working through this.
You gotta figure out what to phrase. Bro, am I
Not much about grade.
I did. Yeah. I said. Like I said, debugger and just because
It won't
buttons.
I'm not sure
I think I'm about to get started. It could be, but you can open it right though. But I don't think it's like directly related to PyShark. Remember like project 4? That one was really good for my show. Because if you double touch it, and then the option is like yours. So like copy and paste, but no, it's like there's probably more files that's in for Dakota, which languages? Now I know. It's the 90s. Like to initialize the object. And I said run, like where it runs, and actually, I don't quote me on anything I'm using that. I'm just trying to see if I can like set a new error calling PS code. And then she was like, you can't really do that. I'm like, well then I don't really know when you're actually initialized. Or whatever I think.
Control system, you have it.
It's running too slow. Can't like.
Oh, I think this is the same set PS as we have. We can use like PS.
Oh, are you using yours?
Yeah, maybe the lines.
Yeah, but I just want to complain later.
Too slow.
Like, oh, it's so slow.
I would this like line number and file name, but it's asking for this. Yeah, I like doing this. I think I do it.
I know, but that's not the purpose.
That's not software.
Or maybe just this slip it in.
Yes, so try to find, so I'll just give you minutes 2 places. There'll be 2 other places that create. And you can use some of the short it'll be like find all or go to. You might want to do one and just
The title. No, do. Well, they don't get walk in. Oh, that's your turn.
So when you get to time 3, it'll just be 1, 5, and then 2, 4. There's 2 lines, but the original type answers that's not, you know, that sort of procedural.
Yeah, man, if I get that, what? Yes, I get
Title,
if I get that, it's on that.
And it'll tell you that shows like how many. Yeah, you should use that as a starting point. Because it's yeah. And you'll want to follow this.
No, every once in a while, just keep it on the clip. Yeah, which what? Oh, that. I don't quite follow. Oh, you're trying to. I mean, that's what it gave me, and I'll just. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give about 7 more minutes for this, alright? Don't worry if you are unable to finish in those 7 minutes, but please do at least submit something, okay? That's how we're gonna do the attendance today, and you'll want to just check, we want y'all to go through the submission process, so there's a sort of section here to follow for how to submit answers, okay? And if and when you finish, there's a feedback form on the slides. Would really appreciate some feedback on this. I think I'll even give some time at 4:30, but if you finish early, slide 3 in the slides today has a feedback form.
Just gotta be the post filled out. I feel like I'm code compared to how they everything
Yeah, right now we're used to hybrid.
Oh, so they're used to it too, but they don't feel like.
It's not that.
Well, it's both.
I'd say like what you see right now, like this one, this is the
Also the straight.
yeah, if you want to make code changes, add some prints
Who's actually
It's not.
yeah, so maybe there you want to do what so it's the variable so I want to start and then so you want to look at this one.
Bro. I'm using I and can't
Yeah, it sounds like
No way, man.
I don't know. Yeah, so just control shift. Yeah, no, like it is.
Oh, just copy.
Like control.
yeah, I guess it's not
Yeah, what the fuck? What the fuck? No, we didn't. We stopped it like. Control A, Control C, and Control Control C, like, don't use the words, Control A, Control C. Yeah, like that, so like text, these videos are texting to the same point until it's. It's got such another weird recording.
So you know if this one says on does that mean like, do you know if like anything saves here automatically? But like, once you make a
New version of
change
debugger.
and then you get it, will it like, do you need to save it where you run it?
I have to actually try to make fun of
I tried running it, but it's like not working anything, and I'm like, let's see what's saving. But I can't tell if the Control S isn't working.
Okay, so I think now we'll sort of request that you submit something. So maybe like finish up your final answer here, and then actually go through the sort of process of submitting the answers. Okay, you have to have both things. You'll have to do this like answers.txt file and codeanswers.py file. Okay, codeanswers.py is just copy pasted from debugger.py. So don't worry if you didn't finish all the questions, just do the submission work now. I'll leave the directions for submission on that.
交了。
Are we?
I think so.
Invalid
Yeah.
not read.
No.
Yeah, if you didn't get to task 1 or 2, just copy paste the original debugger file, okay? You'll have to have some code answers.py file, otherwise you'll get an error that says invalid submission or something like that.
Did you download?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Did you close it? I think they're open. Yes.
So you just try to. That's what we collect is that.
I'll fucking shoot you.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Steven.
It's okay, don't worry. We need paste.
Oh, really?
Paste. Oh, yeah, for sure. It's already in the past.
Go back to the save. So you,
Oh,
wait,
oh my god, this is thank you. I need 2 files so we can see what's going on.
yeah, just go back to your first window.
Oh yeah, it should be. Yeah, I think that's yeah.
This one, questions where
Okay, can I just get a raise of hands if y'all were able to submit answers? Okay, it looks like most of y'all, I'll give it another sort of couple minutes here. For those of you that did submit the answers, please do this feedback form about the Prairie Learn interface and also the questions, okay? Keep in mind the questions are also something we're interested in here, like was what we asked easy, difficult, were they fair questions? You might want to just read the questions again to get too long. Yeah, if it's showing a score when you press save and grade, then that means you're doing it right. Okay, even if it's like 0%, that's fine.
But now I'm saying, yeah. There was a
So that is usually just a final.
Oh, there. I wrote right there.
So let's just check.
And then.
Oh, so you'll have to do it in the home. So you just do like CD. No, it's, yeah. I think it's even in the student guide, there's just one.
There's I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
Oh, yeah. You're submitting to
no, not this.
Okay, so remember, it doesn't matter what grade you have, just make sure you submit something and it doesn't say invalid, okay? If it says invalid, that just means there's some issue with the files being there. You might have to fix that.
I just said these.
No, it'll be, it says get your home directory, like the very famous directory, just use the space, like, it says it in the student guide, of just how you use it.
Not this area. But it should.
Oh,
I think it's sort of like for multiple choice. There's sufficient there, but there's that stuff. And you go,
I don't look at my.
Steven?
yeah,
Oh, I guess, how do I see the file?
because that's
So how?
It's yellow.
I just spoke to the
Oh,
I didn't, when I got things from
You might actually
so I didn't even know.
Oh.
Are you even sure?
J1.
4 minutes.
Oh. That's hot. Oh, it's
I didn't wasn't here.
wait, so, do I that's main for yeah, I probably work like yes.
Okay, I think let's go ahead and move on now. But if you didn't finish the feedback form, please do that. Like, so say there was some issue, like you're getting an invalid grade or something, and you were here but you weren't able to submit, just do the feedback form and then we can also use that as just sort of like the attendance, okay?
I'm just gonna jot on one right now. I'll make it.
Feedback form.
Did you have anything you actually didn't?
Alright everyone, let's spend the last 10 minutes in class today going over something called continuous integration and continuous deployment, alright? So this is something under like the sort of style, or the sort of like general concept of DevOps. If you've heard of DevOps before, it stands for Developer Operations or Development Operations. And so these are just some of the sort of platforms that are helping like implement these DevOps tools. Okay, we're going to be focusing on GitHub Actions because that is something you can even implement into your project as well. And so what I actually wanted to show is maybe like I think a lot of y'all had this issue where when you would like make a pull request, it was saying like a bunch of checks failed or something, and it would say like some tests stopped passing. And so I actually just want to show like what is actually going on there. But at a high level, what you can think of this as is like automatic tests that are being run on the code that we push to certain branches, okay? And you know, there's a lot of things we want to check that our software is doing. So you can think of the reason as this to sort of protect against any bad changes or pull requests that might break something existing in the system, all right? And so this happens automatically where we can sort of be okay even if like the developer who's pushing the changes forgot to test their code or like wrote some bad test that didn't catch some other mistakes, okay? These are like automatic tests that are running every time we push from sort of like development to like staging and then staging to production, stuff like that. So this is what like an example pipeline looks like. I don't think we fully like covered what these different phases are, but you can think of like a product to have like a development branch where it's or like a local branch, you know, where you're just working on your machine, and then you push it to something called like the development branch, which is just like, you know, where all the team's changes are going, and we're, you know, making a bunch of adjustments to that. It's not actually close to production yet, all right? And then we'll have something where we go from development to like testing, and then it's in this testing branch where this is where we do a bunch of like integration tests to it. We like basically start the process of testing, okay? And then we'll have like a staging area, a staging sort of like phase of our project where after it's past this testing phase, staging will be something like we're trying to replicate real world conditions as much as possible, okay? We'll have, you know, earlier in the process, we're sort of testing on our local machine. It's not generalized. When it's in staging, we'll sort of maybe try to like emulate different operating systems and have that be like what we test our like application on, for example, okay? But at all of these different stages, we can run sort of some automatic checks and tests to make sure that the code we're pushing isn't breaking anything, okay? And one thing to keep in mind actually is that we can do more than just run like sort of like unit tests, like what you're seeing an example of here. You know, a lot of y'all have been getting feedback on the project 2 and 3 about code quality, right? Some more like annoying things like, oh, you have too many new lines here, or your variable naming is using camel case, can you use like snake case instead? And so I wanted to show this example of like something called a linter, okay? A linter is, you know what an actual linter is, like a lint roller, for example, and you have like stuff on your clothes, and then you can use this lint roller, like picks the lint off, and then, you know, you can just like tear off the sheet, and then, you know, you kind of have like a cleaner or like lint-free shirt, right? So that's what they're called for these like automatic checks, okay? It's called PyLint is the one for Python. And what this basically does is like on any push, so actually let me show you like an example of this file, okay? Actually, I think I have this open. So this is like a little repository I've created just for like demo purposes. It's just called CSE190 demo. But you'll notice I have this like .github/workflows directory here, and then we have superlinter.yml, okay? So YML file is basically like a configuration file. It has all these specific keywords and like values here, and that'll sort of determine what our workflow or what our sort of like tests are going to be like, okay? So this is all actually like auto-generated. You can just go to whatever GitHub repository you are wanting to add these linters on, and I think when you go to actions here, you can add like a new workflow, okay? When you choose a workflow, this is like choosing those automatic tests to be run, okay? And what I was just showing before was an example of this like modified with bad formatting. When we actually click this, it looks like something is failing, okay? and you can actually just like trace back what the failing is. And I had just sort of like added a bunch of extra lines of code, and it's saying to sort of like remove this line of code. And then I think it's saying we shouldn't have a new line at the end of file, or that there should be a new line at end of file actually. And so it just sort of recommends some of these like code quality checks, okay? This is a really helpful way to like not have the sort of manual process of reading maybe every variable. Maybe we miss a few new lines in the code review. This sort of automates that and makes life a little bit easier for maintaining all of these like convention and formatting stuff, okay? But even more like powerful is if we can run a lot of these like tests automatically, right? So if you remember when, I think I showed this like earlier in the quarter, but when I try to run certain tests on my machine, okay, it ends up like skipping a lot of the tests because I don't have like some GUI process is missing, okay? I think if a lot of y'all are on Macs, you see a very similar thing. Let me just maybe show an example of like what I mean here. Maybe see the test results. So, okay, I am failing a couple of tests, but mostly you'll see like some of these things where it says like skipped cannot run without OSX GUI process, okay? And a lot of my tests actually get skipped, like 65 tests get skipped. And this is some issue with the Mac, okay? But what we can do is set up these like files to actually run. So this is maybe like just a sample project from I think like project 2 or project 3 or something. But this is just an example of what is actually being run in the idle-lib codebase, okay, in the CPython codebase. And so you can actually see that they have these different sort of runs for different operating systems, okay? So we're actually able to have like a more general case. Remember I mentioned before in our local environment, we have all these specific dependencies. We're running specific like frameworks and specific versions of VS Code and stuff like that. We can actually sort of like emulate these different operating systems, and we can see like any tests that are being passed or failed on those systems, okay? And it looks like, you know, because we had some changes in project 2 and project 3, I think this is a great example, right? We are actually, like, it was able to detect that because of our changes for project 2, we're now failing something, right? And so this is like an added like automatic check that happens in the real world where every time you'll sort of push something or commit something, based on what you've sort of set up in the workflow file, it'll run these automatic tests, okay? So we're not gonna sort of require it, but one thing that would be very helpful for y'all to even do is add this linting thing. This is basically, it's a specific like pre-made linter called superlinter, and really like all you need to do is add this like .github/workflows directory, and then just have superlinter, okay? Maybe this is something that'll even contribute to your like project management part of the final project, but this will sort of just help with catching any code quality issues, like too many new lines or stuff like that, okay? Again, you don't have to use it, but I think it'll give you a bit of experience with like a simple CI/CD sort of like action, okay? And we have, you can sort of like, you'll be able to watch the recording for this, but we also have the specific file, the YML file over here as well, okay? Yeah, I think we're at time now, so we'll get to this other stuff maybe in week 10. Remember, or we'll get to it maybe in next lecture. Remember, next lecture, come to class like with your group. We're gonna have you sort of like, it'll almost be like office hour style, but it'll still be, you know, for lecture attendance. And we're gonna sort of walk you through what we are expecting. We all have sort of like targeted teams. Like I have 3 teams. Yash, Cushing, Charles, each have 3 teams. We'll sort of help you prepare your checkpoint and plan the next couple weeks of your project, okay? So please come on Thursday and make sure your team comes as well. See y'all later. No, it's okay.